Hello, welcome to the Personal Corona Recovery Program. My name is Peter Mueller and I've designed this program to help you to get through this Corona crisis and be prepared for the time after. Today, day 13 of the program, we talk about procrastination, or I name it the silent killer. But before we go to there, Day 12 checkpoint. Did you take any actions after viewing day 1 to day 12? Did you start a time log? Did you identify recurring quadrant 3 activities? Did you eliminate any quadrant 3 activities? Did you read lesson 46 to 50 in the 101 lessons book? If you didn't do any of this, please stop the video right now and go to your homework and do it first, because each video is building on the previous videos. So please stop right now and redo it on YouTube. You can watch all the videos and you can do the exercises. But I was assuming you were doing your homework, so we can go to day 13, the procrastinator. And the procrastinator is in all of us to some degree. Now, first of all, what are procrastinators doing and what they are not doing? But before we go to it, we have to understand that procrastination is a habit. And this habit is based essentially on a certain pattern of thinking, which is a kind of a subconscious routine which automatically kicks into gear when certain situations arise. Now, what does the procrastinator do when he or she does procrastinate? They have a resistance to act. They have a resistance to act. Very important. They postpone. We have a saying in Germany, was du heute kannst besorgen, das verschiebe nicht auf morgen. Meaning, what you can do today, don't postpone until tomorrow. Okay, so, number one, they resist to act, which is the result they don't actually mentally decide on an important task to actually attack it. Because before the action, there is always a thinking, a planning, and a decision point. They never make the first step. They are always standing like on a crosswalk, and when the light turns green, they don't cross. They don't do the first step. Yes, and they seldom focus. They are the people who have low attention span. In the moment, they butterfly at work from one project to the next and so forth. They change direction and don't follow through. And they actually think by waiting, the problem would get better or would disappear all at once. And these, as we know, are false assumptions for the majority of the time. Now, the 10 classical activities in these days where we catch ourselves or the procrastinator, take your pick. The typical ones at home, you know them, watching TV, binge watch Netflix, and so forth. The vast majority of social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever. Downloading of musics, building music and video libraries, typical illusions of productivity. Web surfing for some interesting stuff. Yeah, let's have the corona statistics from Sweden and let's compare it to the ones in Italy. Unless you work for the CDC, it is highly unlikely that this kind of research creates any long-term sustainable value for you. Computer gaming is another one of those typical activities. And for the majority these days, it's in the so-called E-universe. All right, now, the procrastinator does actually always a certain self-talk. Before they go to their escape activities, they have a certain mental process. And one of the thought processes is they are actually seeking for reasons not to act, not to make the first step, to procrastinate. In other words, they look for justifications to procrastinate. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. And here's a list of 10 typical thought processes. Tomorrow is another day, or I wait until Monday at the beginning of the week. It's always a good point to start. Or when the boss tells them to do something, why me? Somebody else can do it. This is not a kind of a nitty-gritty kind of stuff I'm doing. I'm for higher things, so to speak. And these are all these kinds of rationalizations for not doing the first step. And this is a pattern. And if this is not interrupted over time, the procrastinator actually gets better in procrastinating. That's one of the problems. And they are always chasing one of those shiny objects, one of those distractions. They actually invite distractions to actually follow them. I mean, for me, it happens too. And I tell you relatively soon what I'm doing when I'm catching myself behaving like that. But before we go to this, there are actually 4 typical procrastination patterns. In order to understand procrastination, we have to know that they have an emotional basis. Because deep down, it is nothing else. We try to avoid pain or perceived pain, or try to avoid an unpleasant task. We simply associate doing something is some kind of painful, or it causes an unpleasant emotional state, which can be triggered by fear, by stress, by memories, by doubts, by pressures, or by our values and beliefs, which are a major source for procrastination if we really deeply look into ourselves. Now, the fear patterns is one of the most frequently underlying patterns. It is the fear of failure, or fear of success, or fear of rejection. But in many cases, when you really drill it deep down, it is the fear of failure. This is preventing people to make really the first step. Then the fun procrastination is what I mentioned before, all those shiny objects in the e-world. A little bit of game here, a little bit another download, another funny video, another kind of share on Facebook, and so forth, and looking how many friends I have. And then another one is the lack of sense of urgency procrastination. Procrastinators very often underestimate the time it takes to complete something. Typical learning for the exams. 3 months before the exams are, you know it. And after 1 month, oh no, it's only 200 pages to learn, and so forth, until they end up 2 days before, and then the cramming comes 24 hours a day. They actually underestimate, and the closer the timeline comes, then the panic monster comes and says, I need to act. And sometimes they actually do it, and others, they just give up and let it go. And then they miss opportunities in life. And the 4th pattern of the procrastinator is a perfection procrastination. They set the goal so high, 100% perfection, and then they see so many things which need to go right, and then they go into overwhelm and say, I cannot do this, this is too much, or too much in this time, and then they don't do it at all. Now, we have to understand, and we discussed it, procrastination is a pattern, and it is a thinking pattern. It is a pattern of thinking. And we are making purposely and consciously the decision to postpone an important activity until later. And we understand this very well, that we do something else what we give a higher priority. Now, the procrastinator has a lot of behavioral symptoms which have some kind of overlap with behavioral symptoms of people with some psychological disorders. For example, people having problems with the executive dysfunction, or people with ADD or ADHD, or anxiety disorders, depression, sleep disorders, and stress. I'm not saying that everybody who has these kind of disorders is a procrastinator, but there is an overlap to it. There is an overlap in the symptoms and in the behavior. And one of the biggest quote-unquote overlaps is in the executive function, which I'm explaining right now. Now, what is it when people have an executive dysfunction? Now, let's go to the real world. We are faced in a situation. We are at a place, we are with people, there is a certain situation. And we want to be in a different situation with different results and different outcomes. So we see a situation with our five senses. We hear, see, smell, touch, everything. Our brain goes through an exercise through our values, beliefs, and our skill sets, makes an evaluation of the situation, and then we take these filtered information and we put it essentially to our front lobe, to our executive function, basically to the forehead of the brain, where we then start in a logical and disciplined approach on how to proceed. So we clearly identify the situation, we evaluate options, we make plans, and then we actually execute to come to a new situation. But people with executive dysfunction, they have three typical symptoms. They suffer from distractibility, impulsivity, and restlessness. And those three kind of features, they interfere with their ability to quote-unquote think clearly. So that means the executive function has a whole host of symptoms and behaviors, and everybody having executive function has also ADD, but not everybody who has ADD has executive dysfunction. Okay, that's what that lower circle means. Now, people who are chronic procrastinators on the long term, they pay an emotional and psychological price for it. They very often suffer from anxiety, depression, resentment, despair, and they tend to have low self-esteem because of the lack of enough so-called successes in their life, which essentially shapes their psychological behavior. Now, what can we do to improve our procrastination behavior? So, for the procrastinator who really wants to do something about it, step number 1, watch this video 5 times and take copious notes. I'm serious. Watch it 5 times and take copious notes. Secondly, make a 1-week time log to actually find the places and situations where you procrastinate and what your typical procrastination rituals are. Number 3, make a commitment to eliminate certain procrastination patterns. So when you know the first thing I go to work is putting the computer on, doing some unimportant emails, and go to Facebook and Twitter and share with my friends. If you identify this is one of my procrastination rituals, hell, you go to work and you don't switch on your computer or you don't switch on your social media. This is an interrupt, a pattern interrupt. You just eliminate a certain trigger that you simply don't do it. But first you have to identify what they are. Then, number 4, develop a pattern interrupt. Whenever you catch yourself doing something, that you can get out of that loop, that you can get out of that mental loop. And the best way is, I call it, develop a power move. So when you are thinking, for example, I should start an exercise program, but I'm not doing anything, that you have a thinking, a word you say to yourself, let's go, let's do, or a hand motion, whatever. One emotionally charged gesture, physically, verbally, with a sound or something for you to get your brain a pattern interrupt that you break through and you actually make the first step. And actually you can look historically, we all have these power moves. We just have to look historically. What was it when I did something really great, when I had a breakthrough just before? What did I do? What did I think? What did I say? How did I behave? And you will find you have this somehow. You just have to dig it out, and then using this power move, you say, let's go, to yourself, or saying, yeah, whatever it is. Find your power move and use it whenever you need it. And then develop a clear plan for the elimination of the triggers. Simply make a daily plan that you proactively get all those shiny objects, those distractions, out of the way, that you are not even tempted. All right? So redesign your day, that it's not a reactive day, that it's a proactive day. And last but not least, I come back to it. Meditate. Meditation helps you not only for the time when you meditate to slow down your mental thinking and brain pattern, your brainwave pattern, it also helps to maintain it for the days to come during the day when you are alert, that you have less these emotional peaks and swings, which are always the underlying thinking and behavior pattern where you are easily distracted and you welcome the new shiny object to distract you to walk away from your priorities. This 7-step plan, if you seriously go about it, I tell you it works wonder. One step at a time, and I tell you, it's gonna be awesome. On that note, this is it for today, day 13. What to do? Start a time log to find your pattern, find your rituals, find your quadrant 3 behavior, find your shiny objects you run for and get them out of the day. Create pattern interrupts. Whenever you catch yourself, do something physically. Stand up, turn off the computer, say hallelujah, whatever. Remind your mind immediately, mind and body, to do something different. And then you can break through. Create the pattern interrupt of your choice, which is the beginning in most of the cases for us. It is your power move. What is it you think, say, or how you act to make the first step? Okay? You stand on a crosswalk, the light turns green, you know I'm supposed to go. But what do you do to do the first step? Okay? To give you that mental push, pushing you over the edge. And then read lesson 51 to 55 in the 101 Lessons book. And other than that, enjoy the process, learn and act. Apply everything you know in the first 24 hours, you are going to be fine. Other than that, Stay home, stay safe, and practice social distancing. See you tomorrow.